I was contemplating because I'm gonna hop on stream later on today on my Twitch though. I'm not gonna hop on YouTube stream, but we could do a little 2-for-1. So I'm gonna do this stream, hop off, go to the gym, and then we're gonna live react to Monday Night Raw tonight. Uh, but yeah, I was contemplating whether I should do this, but I was like, nah, let's do it because I do want to keep watching this video and just seeing what he says or whatever like that. Last week we was on stream. We reacted to How the Hood Was Commodified Part 1 by Lil Bill. It was a nice video, informative. We learned some things, was able to give context on some things, give our opinions on some things. I didn't post any clips from it yet because now I'm posting clips from my what's the name of the video? Your contributions have been are appreciated or whatever like that. But so today we but in the coming weeks, maybe next week, I gotta see how many clips I was able to pull from that video. But in the coming weeks, my clips from the Lil Bill reaction and stuff like that should be coming out. So yeah, I put them on the Overs clip. I want to try and get as many clips as possible where it's me kind of giving my thoughts more than versus like I might take some that's where it's like I'm reacting to the audio, but most of it should be me kind of like just breaking down certain aspects, certain important things I feel is important to the conversation. But anyways, we at part 2. How the Hood Was Commodified part 2. Let's get it started.
Okay, so last time on Dragon Ball Z, I said this was going to be a 2-part series, but guess what? I lied. And I mean, it ain't like y'all don't pay other people millions of dollars every single day to do the same thing, so shut it. Secondly, before we start the video, be forewarned that the path to my point is going to be extra winding today. So buckle up and put on your patience goggles because some of y'all have a very bad habit of voicing your displeasure with my point before I even get there.
I heard too much insults and no so much rebuttals. His racism stance is very questionable, yes. But to completely write the man off is a bit extreme. Huh? Write him off. If he's being racist, then yes, you should write that person off because what they have to say doesn't matter because they're obviously coming from a bigoted and racist standpoint. I'm confused on what that.
Dumbass.
I know what he's saying is racist, but just hear him out. No.
Last time I talked about the origin of street rap and street talk and why you
get something to drink.
Street.
Give me something to drink. Let me get something to drink. One second. All right. Okay. Oh shit. All right, what's up?
You shouldn't be talking about bricks and biscuits unless you're just a really bad baker. But despite my pleas, I know a lot of y'all are still going to talk like an urban dictionary, and that's because street rap today is as much for the OGs doing max bids in the state pen as it is for the JV lacrosse team. Perhaps even more so the latter.
What's up? Hunter Ross, what's up, buddy?
Cousin Ray isn't calling collect every week asking for money to be put on his books for Don the Tube merchant a 12-inch vinyl press of Throat Baby, and that's why it's prison, folks. But you know where they do have that stuff? At the mall and Walmart and your neighborhood Urban Outfitter. And if not there, then online. You know who shops there? Jimothy and Yennefer from AP Calc. That's who. Don't get it twisted. In a country that's only 12% Negro, there's no way that you can even imagine moving as many units as the biggest names in the hip-hop world do without white people consuming your content just as, if not more than, urban blacks. The math just doesn't work. And if you really do ship as many packs as your catalog suggests, you would know that. Trust me, the best accountants I ever met in life were all drug dealers. Some of them legal even. So what this means is that...
As I was saying last week is when people say I want to go mainstream, when people say, oh, this person is a big act, but they don't make music for the white folks, they make music for this, and they make music for the streets, and they make. First of all, you don't know every individual person that's listening to this certain artist's music, and second of all, for you to go mainstream, for you to reach a certain wider audience, for you to be considered, you know what I'm saying, a mainstream act, majority of your audience has to consist of a certain type of people. That's just how it works. That's just how demographics work. That's basically what he's saying. That's just how the demographics work. Just because you make street rap music don't mean that your entire audience is street people and that it's only black people that's listening to your music. A good portion of your audience might just be some white kids. That's why I say young boy fans. I'm from Louisiana, so of course I'm gonna know more young boy fans that are black because young boys from here, not New Orleans, but from Baton Rouge, from Louisiana. But I'm pretty sure that if you take the entirety of his fan base, you'll see there are a lot of white kids that are fans of NBA YoungBoy. You understand what I'm saying? I just happen to be in a situation where I'm from the state that he's from, so he's gonna have people that, oh, that's my cousin, oh, that's my this and that. We went to school together. Like that's just going to be something that's going to happen. But if you expand it to the whole audience, you're gonna see, okay, there's a lot of young boy fans that ain't from Baton Rouge, don't know nothing about the streets, ain't black. They just like his music and they like how real he is. That's their favorite thing to say. I love how real he is and how authentic he is. Like, how is he only real because of him being something that you want him to be versus somebody else who may be a little bit less of street or a little less violent, a little less aggressive, but still being themselves? How can you say one is more real than the other? Like that whole he's more real is it's stupid.
A ton of white and, for that matter, black and Latino suburbanites have fallen in love with street life by using hip hop as a proxy. Because let's keep it a buck, y'all. Nas, Jay, and Biggie, these guys are not. So what exactly is their appeal? As much as both underground and mainstream hip hop love the clown Rainbow Bright over here, the fact of the matter is, before he went fed, 6ix9ine managed to move 2 million units of a single with bars like Iffy, Blicky got the stiffy, got the blicky, drum it holds 50, Kodak Black, along with being one of the scariest people of it.
And I remember when 6ix9ine started blowing up and my partners started bumping some of his music, saying, I ain't gonna lie, that's 6ix9ine hard. I'm just like, y'all don't see what this is. But I've always been like the more, I wouldn't say the purist, because I listen. I won't say listen to all the same music as them, but I wouldn't say I am the purist when it comes to hip hop in my friend group. But maybe I just kind of look a lot deeper into certain things, and I can kind of see through. Okay, you're trying to appeal to a certain demographic. You're not really like that. You're using this image to make yourself more money. I don't think that's cool. I can kind of see through that, while some of my friends are more like, if the music fire, I don't care, that has nothing to do with me type shit. I kind of just I won't say I take it more personal, but I'm just a little bit more invested in the culture, in the future of the culture, which is why I go on YouTube and talk about all this stuff anyways. But I'm just a little bit more invested in things like that than some people are. And that's okay. Not everybody's going to care about what you care about. And that's what I'm saying. The biggest issue is when people who don't care about something want to come and talk to people that care about something and tell them, why do you care about something? I wasn't talking to you. Talking to the people that care. Leave me alone. If you don't care, go and not care over there. You know what I'm saying?
Ever seen just might be the worst rapper I've ever heard since Michael Scott.
I don't think, I'll disagree with a little bit along here. I don't think Kodak Black is a bad rapper. I personally don't think Kodak Black. I've heard verses from Kodak Black and I'm like, okay, so he can actually rap. Even though his accent and his grills or whatever it is that makes him talk a certain way. But if you actually listen to what he's saying in the flows and the rhyme schemes, Kodak Black is actually a good rapper. The first thing about Kodak is, before he blew up, before he was on Double XL and like before 2016, I heard about Kodak when he was a kid from this chick that I was talking to. And I asked her, I was like, was she white? I don't think she was white. She was like Mexican maybe. I don't know. I don't know what she was. But I asked her, I'm like, who is your favorite rapper? And she said Kodak Black. And I'm like, who the fuck is Kodak Black? I was in high school. So this is 2014, 2015. I'm like, who the fuck is Kodak Black? You understand what I'm saying? And she was like, oh, you don't know? She sent me his videos or whatever like that. I'm like, okay, this is cool. The next thing you know, he blew up to be, Kodak Black. But it's that's always a funny story. Every time I see Kodak Black, every time I somebody said something about Kodak Black or somebody like he said Kodak Black is the worst rapper he ever heard or whatever like that, I'm just always like, it's crazy how I knew about Kodak Black before anybody. I won't say knew about him, but I'm pretty sure he had a nice little buzz. But it's interesting how I heard about him really when I was really young, and now he's who he is. But anyways, I don't think Kodak Black's that bad of a rapper. I think sometimes he kind of, you can tell when he's there and when he's not there. But when he's there, he like his verse. I think his that song ZZ. He didn't ZZ. He went crazy with Offset and them. Kodak got some fire verses. Even the Super Gremlin song is hard. Like Kodak is not a garbage rapper. I'm not saying he's the best rapper. Like you said, Nas, Jay-Z, Biggie, he ain't them, but he's better than some of these dudes that be walking around claiming to be rappers.
Once said, make that pussy feeling like it's mac and cheese. And no, I'm not just isolating one bad line for comedic effect. This is the
milking these bitches. Like, hold on. Oh, damn, I fucked up.
Along with being one of the
I messed up.
Pussy
I want to see what this is.
Not but deaf.
Milking these bitches like you who shit on these niggas. I do. I pass the gas like I farted. Boy, if you smelt it, you do. Oh shit! Passing gas like I farted is hard. That's a hard line. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm passing gas like I farted. Boy, if you smelt it, you dealt it. That's fire. That is fire. Like passing gas, which means he's passing the weed around like he's passing gas. If you smelt it, so if you smell the weed, then you probably dealt it. You probably dealt it. Like if you're gonna smell it, make sure that it's potent enough. Is this good enough? You understand what I'm saying? Is this okay? Yeah, this that fire. I'm about to sell it. I'm about to deal it. That's actually a fire bar. That's a fire bar.
Definitely now intended. Yet, despite his apparent lyrical
that's a fire bar. The other two is kind of it, but that last one is fire.
Fans has, at the time of this recording, the #1 album on the Billboard chart. And like 3 weeks ago, had 3 singles in the top 10. Why though? I'm not going to sit here and cap like these kids don't at least have an ear for catchy melodies, but like I said previously, a bump and bass drenched beat alone does not attract me. Or at least it shouldn't. Like I said in the last video, hip-hop is composed of 2 primary elements, beats and bars. This is how guys like Kanye and Dre made names for themselves before ever even picking up a mic. And how people like Hit Boy, Alchemist, and Derringer have become household names among hip-hop. That being said, what makes a rapper unique from just about any other musician is also makes the popularity of some rappers so questionable, in my opinion. Generally speaking, rappers don't sing, dance, or play an instrument when they perform. And this is why. As a result, rappers are almost completely dependent on lyricism as a vehicle for artists.
Travis Scott.
This is why the best in the business are expected to go above and beyond, pack as many poetic devices as possible in a single bar, let alone verse or even a whole track. This is why I, along with virtually the whole rest of the world, call Nas, if not one of the best lyricists to put pen to pad. Just look at these bars from I Gave You Power off the It Was Written album, for example. Nas uses a gun to illustrate his mindset at that time. He feels like he's being used. I Gave You Power is amazing.
I seen some cold nights and bloody days. They grabbed me and bullets spread. They used me wrong, so I sing this song till this day. My body gets cold still for real. I was made to kill. That's why they keep me considered. I Gave You Power is
people around him the same way he.
That's why me personally, I would always put Jay-Z is fire. Jay-Z is the GOAT. But me personally, as far as someone influential to why, I would say that not even though Jay-Z is influential on my writing style too, but Nas, I remember, I don't know what it was, just something about Nas, just growing up as a little kid, trying to be a rapper, whatever like that. Of course, Eminem was always in that list, but something about Nas just always intrigued me growing up. That was always the person where I was like, that's the one. Nas isn't in my top 10. But Nas is definitely somebody that got a huge influence on me as a rapper.
From the time that he was a child. The gun is used to empower.
I don't know what it is. It's just how he writes. It's poetic. Street poet. For real.
All the times at the expense of whoever it's aimed at. No one ever bothers to ask the gun if it ever even wants to be used. They just see it as a tool to advance their own interests. And when the tool is no longer of use, it's tossed aside until the next person comes along and abuses its power also. Additionally, Nas speaks of a gun as a literal phallus, something that also historically has been a symbol of virility and power. To draw parallels between how both are used and even abused to empower the user. Allegory, metaphor, personification. You can't tell me this isn't poetry, albeit somewhat crass. I mean, they don't call him Nasty Nas for nothing. Remember how I said Cole had and still has a viable claim to the best rapper alive crown if he wants it? Go listen to his verse on Johnny P's Caddy and then come back here. No, like for real, go like right now. Stop the video, add this to your watch later, and then come back. Don't worry, I'll wait.
I've heard that verse. I've heard that a bunch of times. It's a nice verse. It's a cool verse.
Okay, now pick your jaw off the floor and tell me that that's not the verse of the year.
My thing with J. Cole, which Sean C, I think I seen a video where Sean C basically said it's just like, the best way to just say is just things don't stick. That's how I felt listening to Might Delete Later. These were some nice raps, some nice bars, but nothing much for me to come back to. And if there is something that I might come back to, it would be probably because of some other people. Like Pie. I really like J. Cole's verse on Pie. He went crazy. But the energy of Ab-Soul and Daylight also made that record what it was, in my opinion. If it was just J. Cole coming on to that beat and rapping how he rapped, I wouldn't be as interested in coming back to it. But the way that Ab-Soul and Daylight go back and forth and their energy and they're just how they approach that record, along with J. Cole being on it, made that record what it was, in my opinion. And I think that's a common thing kind of with J. Cole. Is like, J. Cole has great verses, but he doesn't have many songs, at least this current era J. Cole, he doesn't have many songs to where it's just like, okay, I could come back to that. If J. Cole rapped the way he raps today and mixed some of his songwriting ability that he had on 2014 Forest Hill Drive, I think he would be more of a complete package. But I feel like after KOD, he's kind of veered. Even some of the songs on KOD, I feel like if he took some of those melodies and concepts that he had on KOD and brought some of this a little bit more technical style of rapping into it, I think J. Cole would be a more complete and leaned a little bit more into, I just want to keep proving to y'all that I'm a fire rapper. And it's just like, okay, we get it. You've been a part of the conversation of one of the best rappers since you've been here. Give us something to hold on to. You understand what I'm saying? Not saying J. Cole doesn't do that, but I'm saying when you put him next to Kendrick and you put him next to Drake, they have way more sticky songs than J. Cole. Way more sticky songs than J. Cole. Kendrick has a whole album of just stickiness. Pause. GNX, I personally don't think there's many skips on GNX except for probably GNX. And even that can kind of grow on you over time. Drake is Drake. J. Cole is just a little too hit. I think his last hit record besides the First Person Shooter was Middle Child. And I think Middle Child was 2018. You understand what I'm saying? That's why when people want to have these conversations, like, oh, he's the top three, he's one of the big three, and this and that, I'm just like, that seems like a very like being stuck in the 2020s conversation, because I feel like in 2020 there've been multiple people that can also stake that claim that have also, so like, because if we're going off the metrics of numbers, then you could say Travis Scott is in the big three, but then you'd be like, oh no, but we're talking about rapping. Well, if we're talking about rapping, then you could say, I don't know, Tyler the Creator, even though he's not as good of a rapper as J. Cole, but he's also doing better numbers than J. Cole, and he's also a talented, like, it's just, it's an argument. People are trying to act like it's not an argument that J. Cole's in the big three. I do feel like it's an argument. Anyways, let's get into it.
You can't, because it is. That's because Cole's pen is as lethal as anybody's, past or present. My point being, because most rappers rap and not much else, they're expected to make their point as creatively as possible with wordplay alone. The best like Nas and Cole can leave you unpacking their lines years after they've been laid down, still finding hidden meanings that might have gone over your head the first 100 times you put the track on rotation. So that being said, if you remove everything from Yak's tracks except Yak, what do you have left? And more importantly, aside from his fans, who's actually going to listen to it? Well, if you want an idea, just check out the now infamous XXL freshman class of 2016 cipher featuring none other than Yak and a few other chart toppers like 21 Savage and the Lils, Uzi Vert, and Yachty. I'm not going to play it for copyright reasons, but aside from Denzel Curry, it's garbage. Hot basura, like a week-old 10-gallon trash bag full of college diapers and throw-up. I've sat in on better ciphers in high school with nothing in the background but some dude banging out the grinding beat on the lunch table. Hell, I've been a part of better ciphers with nothing in the background but some dude banging out the grinding beat on the lunch table. Now, I do have to give Savage his flowers because he has come up a ton since then, but if you told me that in 6 years, out of all these MCs, Kodak would be the one with the strongest claim to the hottest MC in the game crown, frankly, I probably just shrugged my shoulders and went back to playing TPAB on repeat. Now let's be clear for a second. This isn't meant to come off as a back in my day, we made rappers memorize whole thesaurus and then transpose the entire epic of Gilgamesh from memory before even letting them near a microphone thing if it isn't that already, because snap music was the soundtrack of my high school years. And Cameron once said I get computers putin'.
Yeah,
so there you have that. But that being said, there's got to be a reason why these guys came out the box hitting home runs on the Billboard charts, while Gibbs, Conway, Jid, West, and Benny who all spit similar content, but are just much, much, much better at it, are just beginning to get a fraction of the kind of attention that Kodak and Snitch 9 got when they were minors. Well, it's simple. Gibbs, Con, Jid, Wes and Benny are all grown behind men and have been for a minute now. As far as Streetlight goes, they've been there.
No, that's okay. Before we get into it, I want to say the difference is too, it's different audiences. There's different audiences. The audience that was supporting 6ix9ine and supporting Kodak don't really like them for their music. Their music just happens to be a byproduct of who they are. A lot of those people like the characters that they play. People enjoy the trolling character of 6ix9ine, so they would support it and listen to the music because they found him entertaining. Some people like the antics and the things of Kodak Black. They found him amusing and entertaining, so they would support it. Meanwhile, you're looking at, you said a Freddie Gibbs, a Conway, a West Side Gun, Benny the Butcher. There's no real character. Who they is in their music. So you will have to already be invested in their music to continue to support their music. Meanwhile, these people are invested in these people based off of the characters they play on the internet or the characters they're perceived as on the internet. You understand what I'm saying? So that's kind of why. That's kind of why you would have artists like Conway I would love to be. If you give me Conway versus J. Cole, hey, that's another one. But I would love Conway to get the more attention in West Side. Like, I've been playing 12, West Side Gun's most recent project, 12, since it came out at least once a week. I always play that. Like, I love that project from start to end. An amazing project. But you got to realize that to get that same audience, to get that same attention, you will have to reach that same audience. And to reach that same audience, I don't think West Side Gun, Benny Butcher Conway, Freddie Gibbs, even a J. Cole are willing to do what it takes, because for 6ix9ine to get the audience he got, it had to be antics. He had to touch the internet troll, we take nothing serious community. We don't leave the house community. That's the people that he touched. I don't think a Conway and them are going to do the antics on the internet to get the attention of those people that only care about you if you are doing antics on the internet. Even if they're talking bad about you, you still have their attention. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't think that's the attention I'm looking for. And also, it's a product of the industry too. It's a product of the industry. The industry wants to keep pushing rappers, black men, hip hop artists or whatever like that to be exactly what 6ix9ine's character was, to be whatever Kodak Black's character is, and that's to be ignorant, loud, animal, like the words that they want a black man to be. If you're a rapper and you are the personification of those words, they will put money behind you because they know we can market this black person, this Spanish person to be this to these white people because these white people already look at you that way. They already look at you that way. You understand what I'm saying? So when you want to be super complex and this and that and try and be more of an intellectual person, they don't want to see you in that type of light because they don't believe you in that type of light. Not saying this, they're all racist or whatever like that, but I'm just saying those people who aren't familiar with that type of life based off of movies, based off of certain things, are going to assume that if you are part of that type of life, you're going to act specifically like this. This is why when they use the words, he is just so real to me, or they're so authentic, they're so real, because that's the image of what that life's supposed to look like to you versus somebody who's actually been a part of that lifestyle. So because that's what you perceive a person to live that life to look like, to act like, to talk like, to walk like, that makes them real versus somebody who may not like a Lupe Fiasco, who also was involved in the streets as a young person but doesn't carry himself like a young boy. You may think Lupe ain't really about that life. And it's the same people say that about Kendrick. The dude What's the Dirt kept on insinuating, and Kendrick doesn't have no real street ties. Kendrick doesn't know this, and Kendrick doesn't do this. He just acts like that in his songs, but he's really not like that. But Kendrick is, though. But because he doesn't carry himself like the stereotypical street rapper, because he talks about deeper things like therapy and social justice and certain things like that, you just assume, oh, he's not really like that. He's just rapping. He's just saying that in his songs. Meanwhile, you're championing a Drake who literally is a Canadian, a Jewish Canadian person that was on a Nickelodeon TV show, literally. But whatever.
Done that, and for the most part have moved on. When you hear these guys spit crime bars, for the most part, they're weaving tales about exploits from a lifetime ago, or at the very least, long enough as not to incriminate themselves on an open charge. I don't think that it's a stretch to say that the artists I just mentioned make the hip-hop equivalent of grown folks music. And that buckles and buckets is why, despite, in my opinion, they being more than deserving, I'm not holding my breath to see Griselda dominating the Billboard charts the way Yak is right now. This is because the music industry caters to a younger audience.
Right.
And marketing to youth is as much about selling an image as it is a product.
Right.
So, halfway to my point at this point. Raise your hand real quick if you know what an industry trend is. Well,
the younger audience is more likely to be swayed by antics and trolling and just ignorance and stupid shit, especially from certain type of people, because that's already what they assumed those type of people were like. Meanwhile, the older people aren't going to be swayed, or the more mature people, I should say. I'm not going to say just older people. The older or more mature people are going to kind of be able to call those things out and be like, nah, that's not right. That's not cool. That's corny. That's lame. That's stupid. I'm not supporting that. And make that, but when it comes down to the numbers, you're more likely to gain a big fan base of kids that will follow you around on your antics than the ones that ain't going to follow you around on your antics because they're while they are kids. If you get what I'm saying, like the amount of mature kids that are going to be able to discern between you're just being ignorant, you're playing a character, I'm not supporting the image that you're portraying with this machine behind you, is going to be a lot smaller than the adults, the more older people, the people in their late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, 40s, 50s, however old they is, that are going to be able to make those same discernments. You understand what I'm saying? And that's why there was this drop where people kept saying, oh, hip hop is on a decline. It was the hottest genre before and during COVID, and now in 2023, 2024, hip hop is falling behind the country because a lot of those kids, a lot of the people that helped hip hop get to where it was to be the number one genre were a bunch of young white kids that were just entertained by the trolling, the gimmicks, the funny, the weird things that the rappers was doing around that time. By the time we get to 2024, 2023, 2024, a lot of those kids went to and probably graduated college, have responsibilities and jobs and other things to focus their mind on and focus their attention on. So they're not paying attention, and they probably are matured past all the antics that a 6ix9ine was doing. You understand what I'm saying? So once that audience leaves, they're going to venture right back to where they grew up. And a lot of them came up on rock music or punk music or country music or pop music, or, you know what I'm saying? They're just going to venture back. They were just there for that moment. Hip hop was already hot just because it was hot. But once the young white kids got involved and they started pushing the 6ix9ine and these different people like that, that's why the last spurt was the drill movement, the resurgence drill movement. When you get a Vine, a Fabio, a Dirk, dang, they just slipped on my Polo G and all of them. That's all around the same time, because that was them people seeing, oh, this is what you guys are. And I just like to, I'm just entertained by you guys being stupid and ignorant, whatever like that. But eventually I'm gonna mature and not be entertained by it anymore. And I'm gonna just keep assuming that's who you are. That's why we have so many young people that will wind up being MAGA supporters, because how they looked at it was, y'all are just being what we thought y'all were. We're entertained by the fact that y'all Hispanics and y'all blacks are just super loud, super ignorant, this and that. We're going to veer away from that because we've matured. And because we've matured, we're against y'all. We're going to join this side because we see who you guys really are. Even though that's not who you really are, that's just how we perceived you through our phone and through our algorithm that was just feeding us y'all ignorance. You understand what I'm saying? So then when we as a people want to kind of talk back and be like, hey, that's not really who we are, they're going to be like, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? Because that was what was selling. Y'all were buying it only to feed this rhetoric and these narratives and these ideas that you already believed in your head. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why, like, you can talk about commodified, the colonization of it is people who aren't even from it selling it to the people that don't even respect it or understand it, and then those people using that as a reason to continue to oppress. And at the end of the day, it's all for helping the labels. They don't care. They don't care who dies. They don't care who overdoses. They don't care how it makes black people or Spanish people look. As long as we get our money, as long as we cater to the wider audience, because a wider audience and the wider audience is what's going to give us the money.
Right now, this is because the music industry caters to a younger audience. And marketing to youth is as much about selling an image as it is a product. Don't worry, I'm about halfway to my point at this point. Raise your hand real quick if you know what an industry plant is. Well, no? Okay then. You ever seen that movie Weird Science? Well, it's basically that, but with record labels and not horny teenage boys. So even hornier middle-aged men. If that reference is too dated for you, it's an artist who presents themselves as someone who developed their sound, image, and thereby fan base organically, who in reality is at least in part the product of millions of dollars worth of tweaks and marketing. You know, you could have just said Billie Eilish and saved me like an hour of editing, boy. Shut up, Clarence. Okay, so Clarence is right to an extent, because the definition of a plant has always been sort of nebulous, and is especially now in the social media age. You see, most alleged plants build up at least a small buzz around themselves via social media platforms like YouTube and SoundCloud before being discovered by some balding record exec with perpetually underachieving children and an equally unfulfilling sex life that isn't paid for. Everybody with a major label deal has undergone some sort of industry-sponsored refinement in order to make their sound and, more importantly, image as marketable as possible to a mainstream audience with tons of extendable cash burning holes in their pockets. I mean, it's cool if you want to spend your entire life playing juke joints and dive bars for free beers and wings and the occasional one-night stand, but if you're trying to make it to the main stage of the iHeart Music Festival, you're going to have to undergo some version of the Billie Eilish treatment at some point. So let's take a look at one of hip-hop's most infamous plants. Rob Van Ice Suge, please don't drop me off the balcony, Winkle. Vanilla Ice epitomizes exactly why nailing down what a plant actually is so hard. According to Hip Hop Madness, Chuck D of Public Enemy fame claimed that Ice had been grinding away in the underground hip hop scene for at least a year or two before getting snatched up by a major label. And Chuck, recognizing that if there was ever going to be a hope for hip hop to break into the cul-de-sacs of white suburbia, Vanilla Ice was going to be it, at least back in the early 90s. The problem was Ice got snatched up by Capitol Records first, who promptly went to work tweaking and refining his image to be as marketable as possible. In other words, just enough street clout to capture the kids' imaginations, but not enough to make mommy and daddy want to bathe them in holy water after listening to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie soundtrack. And I mean, it worked for a minute at least, because marketers actually know how to do their jobs, believe it or not. But once the novelty of a family-friendly white Ice got tossed to the wolves by the very people who made him what he large, never really wanted anything to do with Ice from the jump. Rob just sort of disappeared from the public consciousness, except as parody father and a scapegoat for Eminem haters, and also for the occasional reality show and furniture store commercial. Now, I'm not asserting that any of your favorite street MCs are plants, except Blueface, but y'all don't even listen to him anymore anyway. The only reason I even bring the plant thing up is because music execs get paid to understand something that, for whatever reason, a lot of us don't seem to. And that's that the music business isn't really about selling music. It's about selling an image, a lifestyle even. In the case of hip hop, an avatar through which that lifestyle can be experienced. That's the point I want to get at, and I feel like I took way too long in getting to
That's basically what I was saying. That's basically what I was saying. It ain't about who. It ain't about who is real. It's about who is perceived as the most real. So a lot of white kids will champion a young boy, a Kodak Black, a 6ix9ine, a Dirk, a Baby. Even though these are some artists that I listen to, a lot of them will champion that because it's not that those artists are exactly who they say they are in their raps. Is that in my head, if I were to create an avatar of a hood street black person, it would look like Kodak Black. It will look like Lil Durk. It will look like King Von. It will look like, you know what I'm saying? That is what be happening is these labels are selling the image that the white people already will picture a person of that culture, of that lifestyle would look, act, and sound like, and just selling it to you. And because it's like, okay, I already think that's what you are, and I find it entertaining that you are rapping about killing this person, and you're just throwing money on strippers, and you're scratching up your cars, and you're doing this and you're doing that. You're doing all the ignorant, dumb things that I already assume that you're going to do, and I find it as entertainment. I don't find it as you being an actual person that may have actual personal and mental issues that you're dealing with that no one cares about, or that you may be highly on drugs. Or even if I know you're on drugs, I still find it as entertainment. I do not value you as an actual person or an actual human being. You as the entertainer that you are when I need you to be the entertainer that you are. It's the joke, shut up and dribble type thing. Where it's just like, yeah, everything you're doing, I don't care if it's the product of drugs or mental health and all stuff like that. It's entertaining to me, and that's all it's going to be. And once I'm no longer entertained, I don't care. I'm moving on because I have no real connection to you because I don't know you. You understand what I'm saying? But I'll show up to your shows to be entertained. I'll listen to your album to be entertained. And then when I'm no longer entertained, then I'll move on, and I don't care. And that's what happened to a lot of people. Is a lot of people looked at hip hop as a bunch of characters, a bunch of avatars of what they think black and Spanish people are, and they use that as their form of entertainment, their form of party music. That's another word that they kept saying was hip hop was just party music for us in college. It was just a phase and this and that. And then once we're done, we're going to move on and go back to our country, our pop music, our whatever. You understand what I'm saying?
As should have been made clear in part one, hood life is painful. And the more absorbed in it you are, the more pain you're likely to experience. Some of the best art is made from improved pain. We all know this. And a lot of today's street rappers like Lil Durk and the cult of personality that has become NBA Youngboy rap just as much about the sorrow that hood life has caused them as the hood itself. And in a genre that's been for the bulk of its history defined by machismo and braggadocio, it is refreshing to see somebody say, you know what? It doesn't always feel good to be a gangster. That being said, what happens when the street kid no longer belongs to the street and they either mature out of the rage that defined their youth, or they beat the odds and find a way out of the environment, and in some cases behavior that helped mold them into the commodity they've now become? Well, frankly, a lot of people start getting bored with them. That's what history tells us, and that's my problem. Corporate interests dehumanizing people like me who come from where I do because some milquetoast music critics need something to jolt them from their bubblegum pop induced malaise, or some cornball cul-de-sac dweller needing a soundtrack to their rebellious phase. Remember what I said about Nas in the first video?
Basically what I'm saying.
Cinematic is universally considered not only the high mark of his career, but one of the most important albums in American music history. Feel that way? Nas doesn't. He doesn't even want to acknowledge him at this point because everybody who is a natural fan of his artistry, critics in particular, keep comparing everything he's done since to that one album. But Nas isn't the same kid who made that album anymore. He's not the desperate little bucko from Queensbridge with nothing to lose and an insatiable hunger for a better life anymore. He's the kid who actually beat the odds and got his golden ticket out of there. He's become not only hip-hop royalty since, but a crossover success and a mainstream icon to boot.
This reminds me of something that Vince Staples used to say all the time, was he changed the sound of his music because he didn't like white kids in his comments constantly saying, "Nah, man, you got to go back to that gangster shit. Nah, you need to go back to shooting a nigga." And he was like, "What?" And that's kind of what he's touching on, is they always want you to just continue to be where they met you at, or what they want you to be. With Nas was a little kid trying to make it out. And once he made it out, he no longer had those experiences and those stories to tell. So he came up with new stories, but people still wanted him to keep rapping as if he was that kid from Queensbridge trying to make it out. He's not that anymore. Yet they continue to compare his work to that. And that can create a bitterness towards your own work, because it's just like, come on, man. Like, I done rapped a song. I done rapped an entire story backwards. And that still ain't good enough for y'all. You understand what I'm saying? And same with the Vince Staples thing. It's just like, yeah, I came in the game giving y'all my authentic me, but now I got away from that situation. Y'all still want to bring me back. And then the crazy thing, and he might touch on this because some of the things I'm saying he touches on like 30 seconds later. Anyways, another thing is, we do that to artists. We will say, "Oh, I want you to be like this again. I want you to be like this again." And if they don't do it, you throw them away like a toy. But also, say the artist does be like, "Okay, y'all want me back on that? Okay, I'm gonna do it." Either the album is trash, you say the album is trash, or say the artist does get back on that type of time. Say the artist does, you want them to get back on that drill shit, that killer nigga shit, that this, and that. So then they get back on it, and now they're locked up in jail because apparently they rapped about something that they really did in real life. And now you're on the internet after asking them to rap about some stuff. Now you're on the internet calling them stupid, telling them, "Oh, these rappers is so dumb. Why they rapping about killing? Why they rapping about murders that they really done?" Like, you weren't the one that asked them to get back on that drill shit, get back on that killer nigga shit. That's what we want to hear. It's a weird dynamic, a weird toxic relationship between rappers and their fans, because their fans will ask for music, and then when they get that certain amount of music, they are hypercritical. They compare it to other works, or if that type of music that they demanded that artist makes is incriminating, and then the artist gets locked up or goes to jail for it, all of a sudden the artist is the stupid one for rapping about some stuff he really did. Like, you weren't the one begging for him to rap about some murders, rap about some killings. Prove that you really like that. Oh, you ain't in the streets no more. You ain't really like that for real. Like, it's crazy.
In summation, he no longer has the world on his shoulders, but instead he has it in the palm of his hand. And he doesn't want to talk about the same stuff he did when he was a teenager. And frankly, we shouldn't demand that from him.
Right.
Like his one-time nemesis once said, "Niggas want my old shit and buy my old albums."
Right.
Isn't that just like the privilege? To lock the underclass and occasion that demand the huddle unwashed masses dance for their
If you want what I used to do, then go listen to what I used to do.
Pass out from exhaustion, or worse, find a way to escape. They just find a new monkey to toss into the gorilla house to point and laugh at. And yes, I'm very well aware of the racial overtones of that analogy. Just like the privilege. To lock the underclass and occasion that demand the huddle unwashed masses dance for their amusement. And then once we finally either pass out from exhaustion, or worse, find a way to escape, they just find a new monkey to toss into the gorilla house to point and laugh at. And yes, I'm very well aware of the racial overtones of that analogy, but I'm black, so Christ is averted. Unfortunately, though, Nas is in the minority. Most street kids don't get a chance to make it out with or without talent. Data says as much. That's what we mean by becoming a statistic. The American dream may not be a complete lie, but the simple matter of fact is, the poorer you are, the harder it is to move upward, because the system, despite what Fox News will tell you, is rigged against the underclass for the benefit of the rulers. And that's especially
half of Black Americans born poor, stay poor.
Like I said in part one, I was always
Black wealth barely exists. We was trying to talk about this on the last one. 2007. Okay, so the net median household wealth in 2007 was 192,000 for whites. In 2013, it was 141,000. This is after this is coming out of the Great Recession in 2008. Black people's was only 19,000 and then dropped down to 11,000. Crazy.
prospect of making more money in a week at 16 than I do in a year as a 30-year-old man was more tempting to me than a set of braces into Matt Gates. The inevitability that I would get caught at some point and have virtually no prospects after, but selling
9-year recidivism rates by defense.
I think I'm a pass. And listen, don't let these studio gangsters fool you. That gang of dudes, literal in some cases, mean mugging and gun towing for the camera in your favorite rapper's video, half of them don't even know whose video they're in. And the other half ain't even about that life to begin with. Because if they were, then they wouldn't even be in the stupid video.
Right.
And you know why? Because Fifth Amendment, genius, that's why. The harsh reality about the hood is that everyone is a target. The more successful you are, the bigger the bullseye on your back is. That's why where I grew up, the real gangsters didn't sell drugs. They robbed drug dealers. Because, think about it, I can make anywhere from a few $100s to like several racks a day, depending on supply and the weather, from standing outside in the cold, the heat, the rain, the snow, the rapture, whatever, for like 18 hours a day, get robbed, get shot, go to jail, or the trifecta, plus no paid sick leave or vacation time. Or I can make the same amount guaranteed, if not more, by just flashing a gun in the first guy's face. That's what we call a bingo. And thus reason number 2 why I never sold drugs. I knew guys who made literal thousands of dollars worth of cash every day from just standing outside, and then they got ripped off. And who are they going to tell? The cops. I mean, you could always just work yourself in.
Hey man, I was selling drugs, and all of a sudden someone came up and pulled a gun out on me. Like you.
I said, a lot of guys, or at least guys I knew.
In that situation, either a random person on the street is going to pull a gun out on you, rob you, or the police are going to pull a gun out on you and take you to jail. Either way, a gun going to get pulled out on you.
Some weren't as gangster as they were just young, dumb, and desperate.
What?
That's why a real hustler will tell you the second you see a way of escape.
Why are they comparing Tupac to who the fuck is that? Maddie? What that nigga name? The little boy, white boy?
Work yourself, and some people did, but like I said, a lot of guys, or at least the guys I knew, most of them weren't as gangster as they were just young, dumb, and
know the difference. Who the fuck is that? What is that dude name? The little white dude. They need to stop playing with Tupac, bro.
Desperate. That's why a real hustler will tell you the second you see a way of escape, get out while the window is still open. Because it's just as likely that the next chance you get will be either in a paddy wagon or a casket. Pop Smoke, King Vaughn, Young Dolph, and Nipsey Hussle are just a few of the lives cut short by the streets in recent years. And unfortunately, so long as nothing is done to address the conditions that led to they being targeted in the first place, this trend of young Black and Latino men dying needlessly will continue. Y'all remember those When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong skits from Chappelle's show? Well, some rappers must not have watched the show because they can't seem to keep their gangster in the booth. Or maybe they fear their clout will diminish with the dreaded rap nigga label, thus jeopardizing their authenticity and thereby their bag. Because you see, hip-hop as mainstream as it's become is still rooted in the underground. And as is the case with similarly originating genres like metal, punk, even the blues and gospel, authenticity is just as important as artistry, even more so if you're lacking in the latter. Point being, as a street rapper at least, you can get away with reciting bars from your Dr. Seuss book collection so long as they're really about the life you're spitting about.
Right.
And this, folks, is when the culture vultures swoop in for feeding time. And more often than not,
and that's the thing too, is like in hip hop, even though if at best 50% of what it takes to be a successful rapper. And that's the thing some people don't realize is some people think, especially people who aren't rappers, fans, like, you know, hip hop heads or whatever, they believe, oh, he's a great rapper, he should be more famous. But being more famous, not every rapper wants to be famous, first of all, but also it's a mixture of image. It's a mixture of sometimes your authenticity can take you a lot further than your abilities to rap. You could be the best bar for bar rapper in your city, but if you got a rapper that can only do A-B rhyme schemes, but he really got bodies, he really done some time, he really got a story behind him. That's the biggest thing, because we got to remember, majority of entertainment is storytelling. That's a big part of entertainment. When we're talking about wrestling, I'm a wrestling fan. Storytelling is a big part of that. When we're talking about the NBA Finals and what team makes it and what team you want to win, a lot of why you want a team to win at the finals is based on some story that's being told through the games. Even though it may be, you know, natural storytelling, it ain't as plotted and scripted as wrestling. There's still a story that you connected to that's going on in NBA to where you're like, I think this person deserves to win this championship. You understand what I'm saying? And sometimes having a story gets you a lot further than having a talent. You can be a talented rapper. You can be having done rolling bars since you was a little kid, and now you just know so many punchlines, so many words that rhyme, so many just this and that. You can tell, so you can do all these things, but your only story is you know how to rap. Versus a person that may not have the skills but have the better story, they're going to get the most money because that's something that not only are labels willing to invest in, but fans and a wider audience, which leads to a wider audience, will be willing to invest in. Why do you think 50 Cent became 50 Cent? When you first heard about 50 Cent, or the common thing that people associated with 50 Cent, or whenever anybody brought up 50 Cent back in the day, one of the first things you will always hear is he got shot 9 times. That was the biggest thing people would talk about. Not only was he a rapper, but he got shot 9 times and he lived. That was the story. And that is what sold a lot of people on 50 Cent. Oh, he's a bad motherfucker. I need to listen to whoever this is. You understand what I'm saying? There were rappers that existed when 50 Cent was out that bar for bar were better. There were rappers on G Unit with 50 Cent that bar for bar were better rappers than 50 Cent. But 50 Cent was the bigger artist because he had the better story. Understand what I'm saying?
Very simple reason. Kids are dumb. I should know. I have too. And believe it or not, I was one at one point. And when I was a kid, I believed cartoons were real. And that Mark Calloway was really a satanic cult priest who had a giant disfigured brother who got fire jutsu powers and the one that killed their parents.
Speaking of wrestling.
Yeah, the 90s were a wild time, man. Now, if y'all remember in the last video, I said hip-hop was born not just of black, but black urban culture. I want to emphasize that point because, believe it or not, that whole 80% of gangster rap consumers are white teen stat that the pearl collectors at Murdoch Media like to vomit out to discredit the art form, yeah, that's actually not too far from true.
All right.
Well, depending on what metrics you use. According to data provided to the Wall Street Journal from Marketing Researchers Incorporated, in the years 1995, 1999, and 2001, between 70 and 75% of rap music buyers were whites between the ages of 18 and 34. Now, there are some obvious caveats.
That's something my dad always told me too. My dad always told me too. Was like, so I can't remember the full thing, but he would basically say, black people don't buy music. White people buy the music. The white people are the ones that buy the tickets and this and that. So that's kind of what this kind of, establishes and goes into the whole point of this whole thing is that no matter what type of music you make, you're selling to a white audience. Like I said on the last stream, on the last reaction, when people kept on saying, oh, Kendrick make music for them white folks, everybody makes music for the white people. Everybody. The people that consume hip-hop the most are white people. Even though it's associated and it comes from black culture, they the one that find the most interest in these stories. I would not be surprised if Trap Lil Ross, when he's talking about is King Von serial killer and this and that, when he's making these documentaries, even though I watched a few of them, I haven't watched Trap Lil Ross in a long time, but I'm pretty sure a lot of those people are white people consuming that content. Because the black people, a lot of what these rappers go through, a lot of what these rappers talk about, for most black people, is their reality. I don't have to listen to a song or watch a video, watch a documentary about something that I know somebody that's going through this. I know somebody that's in jail. I know somebody that got shot. I know somebody that's on drugs. I know somebody this and that. For y'all, that's something that's unrealistic. That's something that's very like fairy tale like to y'all. So y'all can indulge in that and look at that as entertainment. For some black people, that's real life and that's the life they want to escape. Like I said on the last video, that's why a lot of people will be like, I'm listening to R&B. I'm listening to jazz. I'm listening to the blues. I'm listening to some old school soul music because I don't want a reminder of the reality that I'm living in. You understand what I'm saying? So this makes sense.
Data to draw a conclusion on who is actually consuming rap music. Firstly, MRI changed its formula for how it tracks the demographics of music consumers at some point during the mid-aughts. As a result, in 2005, the share of rap music consumed by whites dropped by 10%, according to their own data. So how exactly did MRI's formula change to warrant such a drop? Well, allow respondents to self-report their race, for one. And just FYI, these women made a whole career out of blackfishing, so take that for what you will. The reason that 10% matters is because it's accurate. It means POCs are actually overrepresented in rap music consumption, which then means that black people are primarily responsible for keeping their own art form commercially viable, which, salam if that be the case. But if the number is...
Let me read what that said.
People are primarily...
Non-Hispanic whites, which is interesting. I guess apparently there's Hispanic people that claim to be white. And then there's non-white people that, like, I guess people that are maybe from Spain. And then they're all like whites, white Venezuelans, white, but whatever like that. But that's a term I've been seeing. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Non-Hispanic whites. But anyways, who made up 67% of the population in 2005 will be 47% in 2050. Hispanics will rise from 14% of the population in 2005 to 29% in 2050. Blacks were 13% of the population in 2005 and will be roughly the same proportion in 2050. Asians who were 5% of the population in 2005 will be 9% in 2050. So why is all... That's weird. So they're saying there will be less white people in 2050. More Spanish people, same amount of black people. We ain't going nowhere, and I guess we ain't growing. And more Asians. This kind of speaks to what this whole MAGA "we want our country back" thing is. I'm pretty sure this right here might be the basis of this entire MAGA "we want our country back, we're losing our country" is coming. I think they see that it's getting closer to 2050. They've seen these stats. We're getting close to 2050, and they're like, oh no, 2050 is approaching, and a population of whites is going to drop, even though y'all still are going to be majority of the thing, and the Hispanics are going to take over. Oh no, we can't have that happening. This is interesting. That's an interesting stat.
Responsible for keeping their own art form commercially viable, which, salam if that be the case. But if the number is closer to 70, which I'm inclined to believe for reasons, that coupled with the fact that rap music now accounts for a little less than a fourth of all music consumption today means that hip-hop is just another example of how much more mainstream America loves black culture than it does black people. Unless you're this woman, apparently. But whether hip-hop music is being consumed mostly by black or white people is irrelevant to the point I'm really trying to get at. Because surprise, surprise, no one is really buying music anymore, except middle-aged people. Which, considering that the Kxng Anon generation is like a birthday away from menopause at this point, might serve as part of an explanation for why hip-hop makes up such a large portion of music consumption as compared to years past. But I don't want to go down this rabbit hole any further because we're already way off topic. Let's try to stick with the point. The bulk of music that is bought is by people 45 and up. And the bulk of that is anniversary copies of Appetite for Destruction and Nevermind. Young people usually struggle rather than buy music because they're leeches, as anyone with family younger than 24 should know. Furthermore, when they do buy, it's usually a single and not a whole LP. So the question is, why do the bloodsuckers who compose the music industry target children and not the people who are actually buying music? Well, because like I said, kids are dumb, or in PC speak, impressionable. That's because, for the most part, our taste in music is pretty much established by the time we reach our 20s. This is why, so long as the baby bastard generation is still around and kicking, acts like the Beatles and the Stones will always be among the biggest unit pushers. That's why Tupac releases an album like every other year despite his self-imposed exile in Cuba. Think of it like this. How many times did you wind up embarrassing yourself trying something new you saw on Pornhub with your significant other? Now, how many of those times were before your 25th birthday? Exactly. That's how music works. With exceptions, of course. People also usually have a ton less...
So basically what they're saying is, the reason why they target younger people is because younger people are more likely to become long-term consumers compared to older people. Older people... Well, no, they're older... Older people are long-term consumers, but their taste in music and the type of music that they like and the artists that they like are basically established at their age. It's a lot harder to get an older person to find a new artist to like compared to a younger person that's always looking for a new artist to like. So, for example, my mom, at whatever age she is, my mom is always going to be a Michael Jackson, Beyonce fan. No matter what other artists come out, Michael Jackson, Beyonce are always going to be her top artists. Meanwhile, someone that's 15, 16 are looking to establish who is my favorite artist. So if you sell it to them, then now you can create there's possibility of, okay, they might like this artist, this artist, this artist. They're searching to find who their favorite artist is. They don't know yet. So with that, there's more opportunities for them to buy and to try and look for different experiences to establish, okay, this person is my favorite artist. You understand what I'm saying? This is why, in the same sense, James Brown, like he said, the Beatles, they will always sell records because there's always going to be a group of people that might fade out over time because those people are going to get older and eventually, RIP. But there's always going to be a time where the people that were fans of them back in the day are always going to be fans of them because that was when they were the most impressionable and that's when they were able to establish their fanhood and establish what they really like in music. Versus as a kid, you don't know yet. You're still figuring out. You're still in discovery mode. So it's a lot easier for us to promote and market to you because you don't have your mind made up on what type of music you like, what type of artist you like, which also goes into why kids which also goes into, well, like I said earlier, there were some people that were in college and high school that got into hip hop around the Tekashi 6ix9ine drill era, experienced everything, and then later on decided, nah, I don't think hip hop is for me, and went back to country, went back to pop music, went back to rock music, which led to the decline in hip hop because the people that were only there during that phase of their life when they were being targeted as the younger people audience, once they got their experiences and try to figure out what they like and what they dislike in music, they realized maybe hip hop isn't for me, and they went back to what they were more familiar with when they were younger. Because not only were they just seeing black people and Spanish people getting locked up and being ignorant, this and that, and just regurgitating the biases and the stereotypes that they already have towards those people, but also it may have been depressing seeing rappers getting killed and shot all the time. You don't have to deal with this in country. You don't have to deal with this in pop. You don't have to deal with deaths and overdoses all the time. It isn't as depressing. And I think those things kind of mixed that got a lot of people to move away from hip hop, people that weren't in love with it, to kind of be like, that's not for me. People keep dying. People keep going to jail. People keep this. It's just a depressing genre of music. That's how some people took away from it. It's depressing genre of music. It's not entertaining anymore. That keep going back to that word. They found it as entertainment. They didn't look at these people as human beings that make music. They looked at them as entertainers that were meant to entertain. So when these entertainers that are meant to entertain die, go to jail, overdose, end up in a hospital or whatever, oh, it's no fun anymore. It's not entertaining anymore. So they go over to where they think the real music is, i.e. a Post Malone, who was like, oh, it's not fun anymore. I'm going to make a country album.
For much more downtime than a soulless grown folk. Thus, they're much easier to market to, even if just purely based on how much more time they have to be exposed to that market.
That too.
And thus, more likely to spend what little disposable income they do have on merch and concert tickets. You know, those things artists practically beg their audience to buy because they're getting pennies on the dollar from actually making music.
Right.
When you take all these factors into consideration, then you understand why the younglings are the backbone of the music industry, right? And I know the younglings in the audience think that I'm just giving them crap for being younglings, and that's kind of because I am, but both because the data and my own experience backs up what I'm saying. Why do you think Six Flags is always option 1B for every senior skip day when there's too many sequels than actual seniors at the beach? Why do you think the bulk of Coachella's crowd looks like a high school PE class? Young people tend to value experiences over possessions. Maybe because the younger you are, the less you can afford things worth possessing, but that's not the point. The human brain doesn't complete its development until 25, and it's not exactly the difference between a toddler and a 12-year-old, but it's enough that despite your grandparents' sage advice, you're probably better off not making any really big life decisions like getting married or having a baby before that age. Because trust me, you're not going to be the same person once the clock strikes a quarter century. And this is why pop-hop hasn't gotten any sloppy tops since the Carter administration. Also, this is why approximately 75% of the worst decisions you'll ever make occur somewhere between your late teens and early 20s. I should know. This is when I chose journalism as a major. But jokes aside, your teens and 20s are all about discovering who you are, your values, your motivations, your personal code of honor and ethics. This period, as much as your single-digit years, is a formative period. But unlike the pre-tween years, young adulthood is less about cognitive and social development than it is self-discovery. Additionally, the adolescent brain is more likely to seek pleasure through thrill-seeking and less likely to see risk outweighing reward in decision-making. And that's my journalism major. So what exactly is the point I'm trying to make here? That the music industry commodifies hood culture through hip-hop music and markets it to teens and young adults in search of themselves and a low-risk thrill. The kind you get from tricking your brain into thinking it's in just enough danger to get your adrenal glands working overtime without actually putting yourself in any real harm's way. Not like riding in the front car of a roller coaster or playing Resident Evil with the lights out.
And that's the other thing. Like he said, the people that listen to hip hop, listen to these stories, and want to attach themselves to these characters, this lingo, and that goes back to the last episode. Attach themselves to these lingos, these clothes styles, the way they talk and all stuff like that. Have really won't suffer the consequences for those things at any point in their life. You're gonna have your phase where you're gonna want to dress and talk like Young Thug, and then you're gonna move on and never suffer the consequences that maybe someone who a Young Thug would suffer, because it was just cool. You were trying to discover yourself. You were trying to figure out what you like. You got the tattoos, you got this and that, and then eventually you grew up and you moved past it. But some people, that is their everyday life. They can't just grow up and move past a certain lifestyle. That is who they are. Their heads are going to have to be on a swivel because that's them in survival mode at all time until they figure a way out. And their figuring a way out isn't as easy as you being like, well, I'm done with hip hop now. I'll go back to country. It's not that easy. It's not that easy.
Your girl lock her ankles around your waist while going in bareback. I mentioned earlier that the new wave street rappers aren't afraid to bare their scars for all the world to see. And in the process, I mentioned who, in my opinion, embodies this mindset more than any one of his peers, that being Louisiana's NBA YoungBoy. I'm not the biggest YB stan, or one at all for that matter. That being said, I think I understand his appeal and why I can't even share the good news of Jesus Christ without hearing YB better. Young boys are drawn to Young Boy for the same reason why, when I was 17, I jumped at hip-hop for hardcore punk. Black Flag, Bad Brains, Minor Threat, these were bands that spoke to me in a way hip-hop hadn't since George Bush ceased caring about black people. Remember what I said about being street adjacent? Well, a lot of things happened during my pre and teen years that, frankly, I'm not going to get into in this video, but suffice to say, when life begins to imitate art, sometimes you cease finding pleasure in the latter. Well, at least that's how it worked out for me. Point being, for reasons beyond my immediate control, I became a very angry teenager. And if it hadn't been for me discovering and using punk as a release, there's a better than good chance I'd have found a much more destructive vehicle. And God knows there was no shortage of those where I grew up. I listened to YB's music, not all, and not even a lot of it. But the first time I heard one of his mixtapes, I couldn't help but be reminded of the first time I heard My War, or Holiday in Cambodia. The latter of which was on Guitar Hero, by the way. YB's aggression comes from a place of pain. And in that way, he makes himself vulnerable. And that's rare in a genre characterized by extravagance, bravado, and many, if not most times, exaggeration. Don't get it twisted, we're not talking about Drizzy simping for strippers vulnerable. YB is most definitely about the life he describes in his music, but unlike many who come before him, he's just as apt to speak on the wounds he suffered as the battles he's fought. Kind of like one of my favorite MCs, DMX.
I always say that.
And so I can't hate on YB.
I always say that. I said that. I was saying that years ago. I was like, I don't 100% listen to Young Boy, but I feel like his Young Boy's effect on the young kids and his effect on the generation is very similar to DMX's effect in the late 90s. That rawness, that realness, that pain, that emotion, all bottled into one. That was what DMX was in the late 90s. I feel like that's what some people get when they hear Young Boy. Like I said, I live in Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana. So I've seen the effect that Young Boy music has on grown men when it comes to it. You understand what I'm saying?
Understands are more
like that pain, that emotion, that pleading and talking to God for a guy. Some people can feel it, similar to how you would feel listening to Slippin' from DMX or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely about the life he describes in his music, but unlike many who come before him, he's just as apt to speak on the wounds he suffered as the battles he's fought. Kind of like one of my favorite MCs, DMX. And so I can't hate on YB, even if some of his stands are more delusional than Lobster Man's. Dumbass. I can only imagine that there are a ton of angry and angsty teens and 20-somethings who see YB as an avatar for their rage. And I mean, again, would you rather that or those same kids expressing themselves all over your candy-painted classic Cadillac? So like I've said umpteen times over the course of the last two videos, it's not the art or even the artist I have a problem with. Think about YB And then think about similar artists: Dirt, Lil Baby, Southside Chicago, and the Oakland City neighborhood of Atlanta. All places known at least locally, and in Dirk's case nationally, for elevated crime rates. And you want to know why those rates are elevated?
Right.
I'm really getting tired of using this slide, y'all. As I've said ad nauseum at this point, poverty and not single parenthood, not violent video games, not even skin color, if you can believe it, creates crime. So maybe we should, be creating policy that would address.
And that's the thing too. Going to like his point. Crime rate exists in places with low income. But the people that are making these songs about the pain and the struggle of growing up in the streets, they that's because they're coming from an area with high crime rates because of low funding and low money, huge wage gaps. That is the people creating the art, the artists doing that. The art itself is built off of those people that are in those low income environments and are suffering from that economic gap that exists. Right. Yet the audience, the main audience, according to these statistics, are the people that benefit the most from the wage gap. And that's why it's so weird. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's almost like a situation where it is privileged, spoiled kids that want to feel like their life is a lot worse than it really is, so they project their pain through artists who really have it worse and think that it's equal. You don't have to deal with high crime rates. You don't have to deal with robberies. Your partners are getting killed, this and that going on, because you don't live in an environment where that even is a thing, because you live in an environment where money ain't really an issue. And if it is an issue, it isn't as big an issue as it could be. You understand what I'm saying? But since you think you got $10,000 in your bank account, you think you broke, right? Some people would kill, literally people would kill for $10,000. But you think you broke with $10,000. So you're gonna throw on some young boy to talk about your pain, and you're gonna sip some lean, and pop some pills like Juice WRLD or whatever like that, for your pain, because I got $10,000 in my account and my dad won't let me drive the car. You know what I'm saying? That's the irony. That's the irony. That it is broke, real poor people that have made a living off of telling the pain or living in a broke community, and the music is being enjoyed by people who will never suffer or will never truly understand what they're talking about. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I'm getting tired of using this slide, y'all. As I've said ad nauseum at this point, poverty and not single parenthood, not violent video games, not even skin color, if you can believe it, creates crime. So maybe we should, be creating policy that would address the issues that led to these artists living the lives they rap about in the first place? Or is that too much like right to actually be an option?
Right.
Or are we just going to keep pointing the finger at rap music every time we decide that addressing the conditions that created it isn't convenient enough to be viable? Because here's the thing.
This is something I always say. The problem with America is they always want to address the result of the problem and never the problem itself. People keep wanting to talk about black on black crime, black on black crime. Well, whatever your definition of black on black crime exists because black people are predominantly put in low income neighborhoods. Any low income neighborhood anywhere is going to suffer more crime because the people have low income and they're trying to find ways to feed their family, whether that's robbing, killing, whatever means they have to take to do it. It's not a race thing, it's a money thing, because you created a capitalist society where money needs to be earned at any cost, where you need to exploit and take advantage of people at any cost. That's the society that has been created. So when people in a poor environment are exploiting and taking advantage of people to make a living, it's illegal. They're going to jail. But in the higher up here, it's okay. Understand what I'm saying? But also,
rap music every time we decide that addressing the condition.
But also, whenever it's like crime rate is high, education is low, product of the mental health crisis. This is a product of underfunding certain communities, underfunding certain education systems, underfunding certain neighborhoods. This is a result of this. This is a result of that. Instead of going to the root of the problem, they want to say it's hip hop, it's the video games, it's the TV shows, it's the gay people. Like that's what America does. For some reason, instead of addressing the issue, because I feel like I could be wrong. I feel like America believes subconsciously addressing the real issues means taking accountability, and they do not want to take accountability for the fact that they have created a messed up system, and it's been that way. This ain't new. This ain't no Trump thing. This ain't no Biden thing. This has been a thing. Been a thing where America avoids to take accountability for the problems that it's caused itself and the world. So they blame it on things that are just products of what they caused. War and crime and murder and thievery. These things have existed way before any video game, before any rap song. The video games are just products of the rap songs. These military games are products of what y'all do in the military. These rap songs are products of what goes on in these hoods. And these hoods exist because y'all don't fund those communities. Y'all took the jobs out of those communities. But instead of addressing what you did, and you purposely did, you want to blame the results and not what caused it.
That created it isn't convenient enough to be viable. Because here's the thing. In addition to crime, poverty, especially in childhood, leads to anxiety, depression, and trauma. And that's before you add the extra spicy layer of finding used crack pipes and empty bullet casings in the alley where you play hopscotch. So my question to the YB, Dirt, and Kodak fans in the audience, what will y'all do with those artists? And hopefully shakes out of the lifestyles their artistry is built on. What happens when they decide they're tired of dwelling on the pain and trauma that defined their youth? Will you still flood the comment section of every BTS music video with Chance of YB better? If your favorite hood life avatar suddenly was no longer about that life, and moreover, if their bars changed to reflect that, would you still stand for them? Or would you accuse them or whoever else you choose to exercise their angst of selling out or going soft? Like virtually every artist across every genre who decided to change in scenery, situation, and yes, on their bank statement, warranted a change in subject matter. See, I know it's hard for us little people to even fathom that someone with 6 figures plus in their bank account is being objectified. And that's why, as a sports fan, there are few people I stand less than fellow sports fans, except his fans. Dumbass. No one ever looks past the multi-million-dollar contracts given to the athlete in exchange for, practically speaking, selling their autonomy to the team, or more accurately, the team's owner. It's only either when the athlete's contract expires or when they make themselves as big a headache as possible for management that they're able to choose where and with whom to take their talents. And the vast majority don't even stick around their respective league long enough to make such a decision. It's ironic how sports media has conditioned us to crucify athletes for selfishness and disloyalty, for flaking on the same contracts, or just, fulfilling their contract and moving on to the next pasture, when management can either dump that same contract on somebody else or just outright terminate it whenever they feel like it.
Right.
Now it's not disloyalty, it's just business.
Right.
And our fanatic devotion to our chosen franchise more often than not leads us to align with the exploit.
He cooking. The owners, when they release or trade a player, it's just business, or they're trying to make moves, or they're trying to do this and that, or they're trying to get draft picks. They're trying to, we come up with all these scenarios of why somebody would trade somebody else. Like when what's the dude name? The dude who left, I want to say he left the Mavericks. Was it Luka? No. Who was it? What was the dude name? He left the Mavericks and went to the Lakers. Whatever his name is. A lot of people were trying to come up with theories of why they would let go of him and this and that. Oh, I heard it was because of his weight. I heard it was because of this. But if Luka, or whatever his name is, I don't want to keep saying Luka if that's not his name. If he were to decide, I'm not re-signing with the Mavericks, I'm going to the Lakers, he would have got crucified. He would have been called a sellout. He would have been like, oh, you trying to join a super team. You don't want to work hard for a championship. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. It's just crazy. Same with Kevin Durant. A lot of people say Kevin Durant can't be a top player. A lot of people say they won't put Kevin Durant as a top player of all time because he kept jumping to teams to get a championship. He never got it on his own. But if one of those teams were to draft him to the Golden State Warriors versus him deciding to go there, we wouldn't have nothing to say. We wouldn't discredit his standing in being the greatest of all time, because or we wouldn't discredit the league or whatever like that, or discredit the owner or the team or anything like that if they were to make decisions of we want a better player on our team so we can win championships. It's crazy. He
Rather
couldn't.
than the exploitee. Regardless of how high the laborer's wage is, at the end of the day, it's still a wage, and therefore won't ever come near to the true value of that labor. Do I think? No. Exhibits. But far too often, we let our own shallow interests blind us to the bigger picture, and even to betray our own ideals and even each other for the sake of those interests. I did a whole video on that like a month ago, so y'all can go look at that whenever. This was a necessary tangent to make the point that fame and fortune doesn't disqualify objectification.
Right.
The commodification of black rage is a story as old as, well, this country, frankly. The only difference between now and 100 years ago is that it's no longer presented as something to be feared. Now it's marketed as something to be experienced. Well, I mean, all habits do die hard, don't they? My point is the music industry and every industry within a capital as something to be experienced.
Not sure if actual black guys or 12-year-old prepubescent white kids trying to act. Huh? Not sure if actual black guys. Okay, I think that's saying if. I'm not sure if that is actual black guys or a 12-year-old prepubescent white kid trying to act gangster. Okay, I see what you're saying. It's misspelled, but I see what they're trying to say.
Yes. Well, I mean, all habits do die hard, don't they? My point is the music industry and every industry within a capitalist economic system, for that matter, commodifies whatever the public creates a market for. So what exactly are you saying, Philia? I'm saying that there would be no reason for corporate interest to commodify black rage and, for that matter, black bodies, sexuality, culture, and language if society didn't demand it. But failure is what you people wanted in the first place. First of all. Secondly, no, that's not what we meant by representation. Like I said in the last video, when you readily consume product without so much as acknowledging its cultural origins, you become an appropriator. But much worse than that, when you consume that product directly at the expense of the producer, while failing to acknowledge, let alone address the societal factors that motivated the producer to produce the product in the first place, you're not just an appropriator now, but you're an objectifier, and thereby a dehumanizer. One thing I get sick to death of seeing is non-blacks poke out their chests and declare.
That's always why I talk about when I'm talking about leaks. That's when I'm talking about leaks, and I always say, if it don't matter how much money the artist makes, how rich the artist is, if they created some art and they on your own for money for yourself, is stealing from that artist's pocket. That's exploitation, and like I said, that's objectifying the artist. I don't care how famous and rich the artist is, they should have control and say over when and where their music is platformed. Because, especially in America, if you create something, you own the IP. You own the IP, you own the copyright just for you creating it. It don't have to be released. You own the IP. So if someone takes your IP and releases it and sells it for profit, that's stealing. That's stealing. Like he said, that's exploitation. The person made that art for the potential of it making them some money, and you took it for yourself and sold it for your own profit. Like, it's crazy.
Producer,
He cooking.
while failing to acknowledge, let alone address the societal factors that motivated the producer to produce the product in the first place, you're not just an appropriator now, but you're an objectifier, and thereby a dehumanizer. One thing I get sick to death is
even controlling for education, black women are earning less than white men. Wage jobs are earned by non-Hispanic white men with the same educational attainment. Men's earning 73 cents for less than 76 cents with less than a high school diploma, 68 cents for high school graduate, 66 cents some college, 65 cents for bachelor's degree only. Advanced degree, 69 cents. Wait. How they make more if they didn't graduate college than they would if they got a degree? Am I confused? Even control of education, black women are earning less than white men. Men's earning Is the women the coins? I'm trying to understand this graph. Is it saying that men earn? I'm confused.
Seeing as non-blacks poke out their chests and declare that drawing attention to such realities does more harm than good and divides the working class.
I think it's saying that
to produce the product in the first place, you're not just in the
most men will get $1 no matter the situation that they're in. Meanwhile, women's will fluctuate.
One thing I
think that's what it's saying because it says men's earnings and it's all capped at $1. I'm confused on what that's saying.
Poke out their chest and declare that drawing attention to such realities does more harm than good. And
I think that's what it's saying. No matter what the white man's education is, he will always be at making a minimum of $1. No matter what. Meanwhile, a black woman will fluctuate depending on the situation. Pregnancy related deaths per white woman, 13 out of 50 per 100,000 live births. So that would be what, 13,000 out of 100,000. American Indian to Alaskan Native women, 30,000 out of 100,000. Black women, 41,000 out of 100,000. Jesus. That's basically 41%. 41% chance that your baby will die. That's not a genetics thing. That's not a health thing. That's purposely mishandling. And that's what they say too. There's like they don't give certain medication and stuff to black women when they're giving birth because there's just this instinctive belief that black women can handle the pain of pregnancy way better than anyone else. So we're not going to give. That's their excuse. Is black women are so strong and black women are so this and that. So we don't give them the medicine that they need because we believe that they can fight through it. Meanwhile, all their babies are dying more than anybody else. Meanwhile, the white woman was going to get every single medication she needs to make sure that her birth is as painless as possible. It's insane.
Historically speaking, was never united in the first place.
Insane.
When doing so,
about to get me mad up in here.
Portion of it.
Students suspended from school compared to student population by race, sex, and disability status. School year 2013 to 2014. What grade was I in 2013, 2014? At 2013, I would have been 15 years old. 2014, 15 to 16. So I was probably in like 10th, 11th grade. I graduated in 2016. So I'll probably be in 10th or 11th grade, or 9th or 10th grade, I would think. This chart shows whether each group of students were underrepresented or overrepresented among students suspended out of school. The schools I went to, I don't say my high school had it that much, but the middle school I went to, 8th grade, a lot, there was people that was getting suspended all the time. But most of the schools I went to were predominantly black and Spanish. For example, boys were overrepresented by about 18 percentage points because they made up 51% of all students, but nearly 70% of the students suspended out of school. I don't understand what this means. Underrepresented, percentage of all students. 18 percentage points because they made up 51% of all students, but nearly 70% of the students suspended out of school. So black boys were percentage of all students. So black boys were 15% of the school. And it's saying 23% of that 15% would get suspended. That's crazy. So basically saying, I'm trying to understand what this underrepresented means. Percentage point difference. It's basically saying, it looks like what it's saying is, yeah, black boys are more likely to be, black boys with disabilities are more likely to be suspended from school than white girls without disabilities. That's what it looks like it's saying. If you take everything that in what it's saying, it's basically saying black boys with disabilities are more likely to be suspended than white girls without disabilities. And anybody, white boys without disabilities are less likely to get suspended than black boys with disabilities because they don't know how to handle disabilities that much in schools with predominantly black people, to be honest. Now, this one says that 15% of all the students, the black boys represented 15%, or black people represented 15%, and 50% of them were boys in whatever school that they were checking. And of those 15%, so 7% of those boys would have gotten suspended. That's what like it's saying. compared to the white boys, where almost none of them will get suspended. But schools in general don't know how to handle black disabilities. They really don't. They just say you're acting out, you're misbehaving, but whatever. So they suspend you, in school suspension, out of school suspension, whatever it is. That's just a common thing that happens. Is they just don't know how to handle black boys with disabilities.
And frankly, this is why I hesitate to self-identify with any ideology besides the gospel.
I think Americans are likely to be misdiagnosed with schizophrenia, the study finds. This study suggests a biased misdiagnosis of blacks with major depression and schizophrenia. Oh, yeah, of course.
We're so far gone from the point of race being a means to an end that race must be viewed as an end in itself if we're ever going to make things right.
Rich black kids are more likely to go to prison than poor white kids. Crazy.
All this country,
crazy stats.
World's people. What I mean is, you can miss me with all that class warfare BS if you honestly believe that white society doesn't see a rich as nigger first and rich second. Sadly, even when it's your own people, because there's mountains of data that says so. And no, one article from one website I've never heard of is going to change that data, and better yet, a lifetime's worth of experience. Dumbass.
You cook. Don't cook. I like that. That's stuff he was saying. That's what he was saying. It's either stuff that I've been thinking about, I've noticed. Some of the stats is very interesting to me. But it all comes down to, like I said at the end, people who do not have to suffer the struggles of what it means to be a poor black man in America, people who do not understand what that means, are entertained the most by our struggle. They're the ones watching the movies. They're the ones listening to the music. They're the ones going to the concerts and buying the merch. They're the ones supporting that. But once that person leaves the struggle, once that person grows up and matures and tries to leave that part of them, that's when they lose their fan base, because they don't want to see a rich black man. They don't want to see a smart, successful, rich black man. That's not what they supported. They supported a man down on his luck. They supported a poor black man that had to do what he had to do to get out. And now that he's got out, it ain't cool anymore. Oh, he's gone soft. He sold out. So now you're playing the mental mind games with somebody. Like I kept saying, you're not looking at them as a human. You're not saying, oh, I'm so happy for his success. You're just happy that he's struggling. You're entertained by him struggling. You're entertained by his surroundings and this and that, because you don't have to suffer consequences he has to suffer. You're just in love with the stories that he tells, because that is so far gone. That's like a fairy tale to you. It's like Shrek to you. But to some people, it's a reality. You understand what I'm saying? And some people look at that and like, I'm glad he made it out. I'm glad he got away from this and he got away from that. And then there will be those people that are upset. How dare you do that? You're supposed to be a street nigga. You're supposed to be real. You ain't real. You lie. That's another thing I noticed. Looking at a lot of those like Chiracology type content pages where they're breaking down the murders and who did this and who was involved in this and what happened with that. A lot of the voices speaking on those subjects outside of maybe academics were a lot of white voices. Maybe like the Game Spitter. Shout out to Game Spitter. The Game Spitter kind of was more like hood news. He wasn't breaking down the individuals of what happened and who did this and who got paid for this and what car they were driving and all stuff like that. Most of them, they will probably have a voice changer on, but even you can tell through the voice changer, this sounds like a white person talking. Game Spitter was more like, oh yeah, old dude got whatever. This is why y'all need to make sure y'all protecting yourselves. Get y'all bulletproof book pack. Get y'all this good. Like he was kind of spitting game that were surrounded by things going on in the streets in hip hop. But some of these people were just had nothing to do with hip hop. Individual murders happening in Chicago for the entertainment, and I'm just like watching these things, listening to these things. I'm like, bro, like this is insane. Who is entertained by this? This is sad. But there will be people in the comments like, oh yeah, that's why King Von's the GOAT, because he did it. Like, and most of the time it would be somebody who was not putting their picture on a thing. And most of those is white kids. You know what I'm saying? Some of those people are entertained by black people killing other black people. Black people rapping about killing other black people, robbing other black people, stealing their chain. Yeah, that's why my favorite rapper stole this rapper chain. My favorite rapper got more bodies than your favorite rapper. I've never had that conversation with a black person. But that sounds like a conversation that a couple white people have. Oh man, fuck your guy, man. My guy has 7 bodies on his belt, man. I'm just saying. But that's it for me. I'll be back on live. I won't be on YouTube though. I'll be over on Twitch later on when Monday Night Raw comes on. We'll be live reacting to Monday Night Raw on Netflix. But that's it for me. I'm out. Too sweet. Peace.